I think I didn't do anything wrong, just took an opportunity that anyone in my position would have. But now, as I stare at the thick envelope from my husband's lawyer, I wonder why everyone is acting like I'm the villain. All I did was say yes to a proposal that changed my career. How could that possibly be cheating? Morning light spilled through the blinds as I fastened the gold bracelet Leonard had given me. Doug stood at the counter, watching. "New jewelry?" he asked flatly. "This old thing?" I laughed, hiding the tremor in my voice. It wasn't old. Leonard had given it to me 3 weeks ago. I told myself I'd earned it. Senior project coordinator. Promotions came with perks. Doug only frowned. "You've been working late a lot." "Success requires sacrifice," I said, already glancing at my phone. Leonard's text read, "Looking forward to making it official tonight." At work, the whispers followed me, but Leonard's smile erased them all. Over champagne, he promised me a future, both professional and personal. I wanted to believe him. By the time I drove home, I was floating. But Doug was waiting in the kitchen, pale and silent. "How was your team dinner?" he asked. "Productive." He reached into my purse and pulled out the bracelet I thought I'd hidden. His thumb traced the engraving. To AV for New Beginnings. LR. New beginnings? His tone was quiet, final. "It's a gift," I said, but even I didn't even sound convinced. For the first time, Doug didn't argue. He just looked at me, cold, calm, and certain, and I realized he'd already started planning the end. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Leonard's text came just as I was helping Maya with her homework. "Tonight's the night. Everything changes after dinner. Wear something memorable." My pulse quickened. This was the turning point, the start of my real life. "Mummy, you're not listening," Maya said softly, pencil in hand. "Sorry, sweetheart," I murmured, barely glancing at her worksheet. When Doug got home, I was already in the red dress Leonard loved. "Another team dinner?" he asked, voice tight. "Quarterly review," I said. He tried to stop me, asked me to look at him, to talk. "This isn't about work anymore," he said. "It's always about work," I snapped, brushing past him. At Chez Laurent, Leonard greeted me like I was already his partner. Champagne, candlelight, promises of power. "Tomorrow changes everything," he whispered after kissing me goodnight. I drove home glowing, until I saw Doug waiting in the dark. "How was your team dinner?" he asked quietly. Then he showed me his phone. A photo of Leonard and me at dinner, our hands touching, the caption suggesting more than business. "I can explain," I said, but my excuses collapsed in the silence. Doug only nodded, his expression hollow. "Maya drew a picture today," he said. "There's another man in it, the one who makes Mommy smile differently." I stood frozen as he walked upstairs, leaving me alone in the dark, realizing that tomorrow might change everything, but not the way I'd imagined. The announcement came at 10 a.m. sharp, during Meridian's monthly board meeting. I wasn't present. Leonard said it would be more professional if he presented my promotion as a fait accompli, rather than having me there to field questions. But word spread through the office like wildfire. "Senior Vice President of Strategic Development," Sarah from accounting whispered to Jennifer from claims as I walked past their cubicles. "That's a $60,000 jump minimum." "In 6 months," Jennifer whispered back. "From project coordinator to SVP in 6 months." I kept my head high, my smile confident. Let them whisper. Success always bred resentment among the mediocre, but by lunch, the whispers had taken on a different tone. "Never even finished her MBA. Henderson's been here 12 years and never made VP. Awfully convenient timing with Rose's divorce." I was heating my salad in the break room when Marcus Henderson cornered me. At 55, he'd been passed over for promotion so many times he'd developed a permanent bitter expression. Congratulations, Araminta, he said, his tone suggesting anything but congratulation. Hell of a meteoric rise. Thank you, Marcus. Hard work pays off. Hard work. He nodded slowly. Is that what we're calling it? I'm not sure what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Ro's been here 8 years, and in that time, exactly 0 people have jumped from coordinator to VP, until now. Other employees had gathered in the break room, pretending to focus on their lunches while obviously listening to our conversation. Maybe that says more about the quality of previous candidates than about current opportunities, I replied smoothly. Marcus's face reddened. I've got an MBA from Northwestern and 15 years of experience. What do you have that I don't? The question hung in the air like a challenge. I felt every eye in the room on me, waiting for my response. Vision, I said finally, and the ability to execute on that vision. Some people are content to maintain the status quo. Others are built to lead transformation. I left the break room with my head high, but I could feel the stares following me. By the time I reached my office, my hands were shaking slightly. My phone buzzed with a text from Leonard. How's your first day as SVP? Hope the team is being supportive. Before I could respond, another text appeared. This one from Doug. Maya's teacher called. She's been having trouble concentrating. Says she's worried about Mommy and Daddy fighting. I deleted Doug's message and responded to Leonard. Some adjustment period expected. Nothing I can't handle. His reply was immediate. That's my girl. Dinner tonight to celebrate properly. Can't wait. But when I got home that evening, Doug was waiting with Maya's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, in our living room. Mrs. Hensley, the elderly woman said, standing as I entered. Thank you for making time to meet. I shot Doug a furious look. Ambushing me with school meetings without warning was a new low, even for him. Of course, though I'm not sure why this couldn't wait for a scheduled conference. Maya's been having some behavioral changes, Mrs. Patterson said gently. She's been withdrawn in class, having trouble with focus. Yesterday she started crying during math and said she was worried her family was breaking apart. The words hit me like a slap. I glanced at Maya, who was coloring at the kitchen table, but obviously listening to every word. Maya's just adjusting to some changes in our routine, I said carefully. I've recently received a significant promotion at work. Congratulations, Mrs. Patterson said, though her tone suggested she wasn't sure congratulations were in order. Change can be difficult for children, even positive change. Maya mentioned that you've been working late most nights. Success requires sacrifice. Maya will understand that when she's older. Doug made a sound that might have been a laugh or a snort. Mrs. Patterson glanced between us, clearly sensing the tension. Perhaps we could discuss ways to maintain stability for Maya during this transition period, she suggested diplomatically. Maya is fine, I said firmly. She's just being dramatic. Children do that. Mrs. Hensley, yesterday Maya asked me if it was her fault that her mummy doesn't want to live with them anymore. The room went silent except for the sound of Maya's crayons against paper. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, anger and embarrassment warring in my chest. That's ridiculous. I never said anything about not wanting to live here. Children are very perceptive, Mrs. Patterson said gently. They pick up on emotional undercurrents that adults think they're hiding. After she left, Doug and I stood in the living room while Maya continued coloring, the silence stretching between us like a chasm. You had no right to ambush me like that, I said finally. I had every right to be concerned about our daughter's well-being. Our daughter is fine. You're the one filling her head with anxiety. I'm filling her head with anxiety. Doug's voice rose slightly. Then he caught himself, glancing toward Maya. I'm not the one coming home at midnight smelling like another man's cologne. That's work, Doug. Important work that you clearly don't understand. Show me. What? Show me the work. Show me these late-night projects that are so important. Show me your communications with Leonard. I've told you that's confidential. Bullshit. The The profanity was so unlike Doug that I actually stepped back. You want to know what's not confidential? The fact that Leonard Rowe's divorce was finalized last month. The fact that he's been seen around town with a mysterious brunette. The fact that Henderson filed a complaint with HR about favoritism and inappropriate workplace relationships. My blood ran cold. Henderson is just bitter about being passed over again. Is he? Because according to Claire, who heard it from her friend who works in HR at Meridian, there's going to be an investigation. Claire needs to mind her own business. Claire is worried about her brother and her niece. We all are. I looked around our living room, the family photos on the mantel, Maya's artwork covering the refrigerator, the comfortable furniture we'd saved up to buy. It all felt small suddenly, cramped and limiting. Maybe you should be worried about yourselves instead of judging me for having ambition. Ambition. Doug repeated the word like it tasted bad. Is that what Leonard calls it? Don't be crude. I'm being honest. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. I grabbed my purse and keys. I don't have to listen to this. Where are you going? Out, away from your accusations and paranoia. Mommy? Maya's small voice stopped me at the door. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, her coloring book clutched against her chest. Are you leaving us? The question broke something inside me, but I couldn't let it show. Not now, when everything I'd worked for was so close. Mummy's just going for a drive, sweetheart. I'll be back. But as I drove aimlessly through our suburban neighborhood, past the identical houses with their perfect lawns and minivans, I wondered if that was true. Did I want to come back to this life of small concerns and smaller dreams? My phone rang. Leonard's name on the display. Hello, beautiful. How was your day? Challenging. There's been some pushback about my promotion. Jealousy is the price of success. Don't let small minds drag you down to their level. It's not just work. Doug is becoming impossible. He's suspicious, controlling. He's even got Maya's teacher involved, trying to make me look like a bad mother. You're not a bad mother. You're a woman with vision, with drive. Some people can't handle that. I know, it's just difficult. Change is always difficult. But we're building something extraordinary together, Araminta. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. After we hung up, I sat in my car outside a coffee shop downtown, watching people hurry past on the sidewalk. Everyone looked so purposeful, so sure of their destinations. When I finally returned home, the house was quiet. Doug was in his study grading papers, and Maya was presumably asleep. I climbed the stairs quietly, but Doug's voice stopped me in the hallway. Araminta. I paused at his study door. He was sitting at his desk, surrounded by stacks of tests and lesson plans, looking older than his 36 years. We can't keep doing this, he said without looking up. Doing what? Pretending, living like strangers in the same house. Maya deserves better. Maya deserves a mother who's building a successful future. Maya deserves a mother who comes home for dinner, who helps with homework, who doesn't disappear for hours without explanation. I'm doing this for our family. Doug finally looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my stomach clench, not anger or jealousy, but pity. No, Araminta, you're doing this for you, and that's fine, that's your choice. But don't pretend it's for us. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I went to our bedroom and closed the door, shutting out Doug's disappointed silence, and the sound of Maya talking in her sleep down the hall. Tomorrow, I decided, I would talk to Leonard about accelerating our timeline. This liminal space between my old life and my new one was becoming unbearable. It was time to make a clean break. The family dinner was supposed to be a celebration. Doug's parents were visiting for the weekend, and his sister Claire had driven up from the city with her husband and kids. Maya had been excited all week, planning games and showing off her latest school projects. I'd hoped to use the gathering to present a united front, to show Doug's family that despite whatever rumors they might have heard, we were solid, successful, thriving. Instead, it became the night everything fell apart. Eleanor Hensley had never liked me. That much had been clear from the day Doug brought me home 8 years ago. She thought her precious son could do better than a girl from the wrong side of town, with big dreams and bigger ambitions. Tonight, her disapproval radiated across the dinner table like heat from a furnace. "So, Araminta," she said, cutting her roast beef with surgical precision, "Doug tells us you've received quite the promotion at work." "Yes, Senior Vice President of Strategic Development. It's a significant advancement." "How wonderful. And so quickly, too. You've only been with the company, 2 years?" 26 months, but when you demonstrate value, good companies recognize it. Claire exchanged a look with her husband that I pretended not to notice. Their twins, Maya's cousins, were chattering about school while Maya sat quietly, picking at her food. "And your new boss," Eleanor continued. "Mr. Rowe, is it? Doug mentioned he's recently divorced." The question was loaded with implication, but I kept my voice steady. Leonard is a visionary leader. His personal life has no bearing on his professional judgment. "Leonard," Eleanor repeated as if tasting the name. "How nice that you're on a first-name basis." Doug's father, Gregory Sr., cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Eleanor, perhaps we could discuss something else." "Of course." Eleanor smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Though speaking of Mr. Rowe, I received the most interesting email today. From Meridian Insurance, actually. Something about new policies regarding workplace relationships." My fork clattered against my plate. "What?" Eleanor pulled out her phone with the deliberate movements of someone who'd been planning this moment. "Let me read it to you. Dear Meridian family, recent events have prompted a review of our policies regarding personal relationships between supervisors and subordinates. Effective immediately, any romantic or personal relationships between employees of different hierarchical levels must be disclosed to Human Resources for review and potential reassignment." How interesting. The table fell silent except for the children's chatter. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for my response. "That's a standard corporate policy," I said finally. "Most companies have similar guidelines." "Standard," Eleanor nodded, "though the timing is curious, don't you think? Right after your promotion." "Mother," Doug said quietly, "that's enough." "Is it? Because I'm concerned about my granddaughter. Maya, sweetheart, how are things at home?" Maya looked up from her plate, her 8-year-old eyes wide with confusion. "Okay, Grandma. Mommy works a lot now. She talks on the phone to her friend Leonard." The innocence of the statement made it devastating. Claire's husband choked on his wine, and Doug's face went pale. "Maya," I said quickly, "why don't you go play with your cousins in the living room?" "But I'm not done eating." "Now, Maya." After the children left, the silence stretched unbearably. Eleanor folded her hands on the table like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. "I've been married for 38 years, she said. "I know what a woman in love looks like, and I know what a woman falling out of love looks like." "Eleanor, please," Gregory Sr. tried to intervene. "No, Gregory. My son deserves better than this charade." She turned to me with cold eyes. "I don't know what game you're playing, Araminta, but it ends now. Doug is a good man, a faithful husband, a devoted father. If you can't appreciate that, then let him go." "Let him go?" I stood up, anger finally overriding my shock. "This is my marriage, my family. I don't need relationship advice from someone who's never worked outside the home. At least I never betrayed my wedding vows. I haven't betrayed anything. I'm building a career, creating opportunities. I'm sorry if that threatens your outdated worldview." "Threatened?" Eleanor laughed bitterly. "Sweetheart, I'm not threatened. I'm disgusted." Doug stood abruptly. "That's enough, both of you." But Eleanor wasn't finished. "Show her the photo, Claire." Claire hesitated, glancing at her brother. "Mom, maybe this isn't the right time." "Show her." Claire reluctantly pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. The image was clear, despite being taken from across a restaurant. Leonard and me at dinner 3 nights ago. his hand covering mine, both of us leaning across the table in intimate conversation. "A friend sent this to me," Claire said quietly. "She thought I should know." I stared at the photo, my mind racing for an explanation that wouldn't sound like a lie. "That's a business dinner. We were discussing strategy." "Business?" Eleanor repeated. "Is that what you call holding hands with another woman's husband?" "He's divorced." "Barely. His divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago." The precision of her knowledge was unsettling. How much had Doug's family been investigating my life? "I don't have to justify my professional relationships to you," I said. "Professional?" Doug spoke for the first time since the photo appeared, his voice hollow. "Is that what you're calling it?" I turned to face my husband, seeing my own guilt reflected in his disappointed eyes. "Doug, you know how important my career is to me. I know how important Leonard Rowe is to you." The accusation hung between us like a blade. Around the table, Doug's family watched our marriage disintegrate in real time. "This is ridiculous," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "You're all making something innocent into something sordid." "Innocent?" Claire stood up, her voice shaking with anger. "Innocent is having dinner with colleagues. This," she gestured at the phone, "this is having an affair." "I am not having an affair." "Then prove it," Doug said quietly. "Show us your phone. Show us your text messages with Leonard." "I've told you that's confidential." "Bullshit," Claire exploded. "Stop hiding behind corporate confidentiality and show us the truth." The children's voices from the living room suddenly seemed very far away. I looked around the table at the faces staring back at me. Eleanor's cold judgment, Claire's protective fury, Gregory Sr.'s uncomfortable disappointment, and Doug's quiet devastation. "I don't have to prove anything to any of you," I said finally. Doug nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed something he'd already suspected. "No, you don't. But the fact that you won't tells us everything we need to know." He stood and walked toward the living room. "Maya, come here, sweetheart." Our daughter appeared in the doorway, still clutching one of her cousin's toys. "Yes, Daddy?" "Get your overnight bag. You're going to stay at Grandma and Grandpa's hotel tonight." "Why?" Doug glanced at me, then back at Maya. "Mommy and Daddy need to have a grown-up conversation." After Doug's family left with Maya, the house felt cavernous and cold. I stood in the kitchen, mechanically loading the dishwasher, while Doug sat at the table, staring at Claire's phone, and the damning photo still displayed on the screen. "How long?" he asked finally. "How long what?" "How long have you been in love with him?" The question was so direct, so honest, that it caught me off guard. I could have lied, could have continued the charade, but something in Doug's voice, resignation rather than anger, made deception seem pointless. "I'm not in love with him," I said. "I'm in love with the life he's offering." Doug looked up at me, and I saw something break behind his eyes. "And what about the life we built together?" I gestured around our modest kitchen, with its worn countertops and outdated appliances. "This isn't enough anymore, Doug. I want more. More than a husband who loves you, more than a daughter who adores you. More than being trapped in suburban mediocrity for the rest of my life." The words came out harsher than I intended, but they were true. I was 32 years old, and I could see my entire future stretching ahead. PTA meetings and soccer games and family vacations to the same lake house year after year until I died of boredom. Doug stood slowly, moving like an old man despite being only 36. "I'm going to pack a bag." "Where are you going?" "To my parents' hotel. I need time to think." "Doug, wait." "No, Araminta, I'm done waiting. I'm done pretending this marriage isn't over. I'm done watching you choose him over us every single day." He paused at the kitchen doorway. "When I come back tomorrow, I want you to be ready to tell me the truth. All of it. And then we'll figure out how to tell Maya that her family is breaking apart." After he left, I sat alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the detritus of family dinner. Dirty dishes, leftover food, the lingering scent of Eleanor's disapproving perfume. My phone buzzed with a text from Leonard. How was dinner with the in-laws? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Complicated. We need to talk. Tomorrow. My place. We'll figure everything out. I turned off the lights and went upstairs to our bedroom. My bedroom now, I supposed. Doug's pillow still smelled like his shampoo, and his reading glasses were folded neatly on the nightstand next to a book about the Civil War. Such small things, such ordinary domestic details of a life I was ready to leave behind. So why did looking at them make me feel like I was drowning? Doug returned the next morning with a manila folder and a man I'd never seen before, mid-40s, expensive suit, briefcase that screamed attorney. Araminta, Doug said, his voice carefully neutral. This is David Chen, my lawyer. The words hit me like ice water. Your lawyer? Please sit down, Mr. Chen said, gesturing toward our dining room table. We have some things to discuss. I remained standing, my arms crossed defensively. I don't have to discuss anything with you. This is my house. Actually, Mr. Chen said, consulting his notes, this house is jointly owned by you and your husband, as are most of your assets, according to the financial documents Mr. Hensley provided. Doug sat across from me, that manila folder positioned carefully in front of him. He looked different, older, more serious, like he'd shed some essential part of himself overnight. What is this about? I demanded. This is about our marriage, Doug said quietly, and about the choices you've made. Mr. Chen opened his briefcase and withdrew a thick stack of papers. Mrs. Hensley, we're here to discuss the dissolution of your marriage and the custody arrangements for your daughter. Custody arrangements? My voice rose an octave. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious, Doug said. Maya needs stability, and you've made it clear that stability isn't your priority. My priority is building a successful future for our family. Your priority is Leonard Rowe, Doug said, opening the manila folder, and I can prove it. He slid a photograph across the table. Leonard and me leaving Chez Laurent 3 nights ago, his hand on my back, both of us laughing at something he'd whispered in my ear. This was taken by a private investigator, Mr. Chen explained. Mr. Hensley hired him 2 weeks ago when your behavior became concerning. You had me followed. I was genuinely shocked. Doug had always been trusting, almost naive. The idea of him hiring a private investigator seemed impossible. I had my wife followed, Doug corrected, because my wife started coming home at midnight smelling like another man's cologne, because my wife stopped wearing her wedding ring, because my wife started treating her family like an inconvenience. I looked down at my left hand automatically. When had I stopped wearing my ring? I couldn't even remember. Doug slid another photograph across the table. This one showed Leonard and me in the parking lot outside his apartment building, locked in an embrace that was unmistakably intimate. That was taken last Thursday, Mr. Chen said, the same night you told your husband you were working late on the Peterson account. My mouth went dry. That's not... We were just what? Doug's voice was still calm, but I could hear the pain underneath. Just saying goodbye after another business meeting. He slid more photographs across the table. Leonard and me at various restaurants, walking together downtown, sitting in his car outside my office building. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. These could be innocent, I said weakly. Doug laughed, but there was no humor in it. Could they? What about these? The next set of documents weren't photographs. They were printouts of text messages, my text messages with Leonard, somehow obtained and compiled into a devastating chronology of our relationship. L. Can't wait to see you tonight. I've been thinking about you all day. A. Me too. Doug's working late, so I can stay until midnight. L. Perfect. I have something special planned for us. A. I love how you make me feel like the woman I'm meant to be. How did you get these? I whispered. Phone records, Mr. Chen said matter-of-factly. Your husband has access to the family phone plan. The content of these messages suggests a relationship that goes far beyond professional mentorship. Doug slid another document across the table. Bank statements showing deposits into my personal account from Leonard's personal account, not the company. $3,000 last month, Doug said. $5,000 the month before. What were these payments for, Araminta? Consulting fees. Private consulting work I did for Leonard. What kind of consulting? I couldn't answer because there hadn't been any consulting. The money had been gifts, for clothes, for jewelry, for the lifestyle Leonard wanted me to maintain as his partner. Let me read you one more message, Doug said, his voice steady despite the devastation in his eyes. L, when we announce our engagement next month, everything will be perfect. A, I can't wait to start our real life together. The room went silent except for the ticking of our kitchen clock. I stared at the printouts scattered across our dining room table, evidence of choices I'd made, words I'd written, a relationship I'd built while my marriage crumbled around me. Engagement? Doug's voice finally cracked. You're engaged to him. It's not official. You're engaged to another man while you're still married to me. Doug, let me explain. Explain what? How you've been planning a future with Leonard while lying to my face every single day? How you've been taking money from him while pretending this was about career advancement? I looked at the evidence spread across the table and realized there was no explanation that would make this better, no story I could tell that would undo the damage. I never meant for it to happen this way, I said finally. But it did happen this way, Mr. Chen interjected, which brings us to the matter of custody. Mr. Hensley is seeking primary custody of your daughter with supervised visitation for you. Supervised visitation? I stood up so quickly my chair fell backward. Maya is my daughter. Maya is a child whose mother has been conducting an extramarital affair while lying to her family, Mr. Chen said calmly. A child whose mother has been accepting money from her lover while claiming it was legitimate work. A child whose mother has been planning to abandon her family for another man. I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was trying to build a better life. For who? Doug stood up, his composure finally cracking. For Maya, who's been having nightmares about her family breaking apart. For me, who's been watching his wife fall in love with another man. Or for yourself, Araminta, because everything you've done has been about what you want, what you need, what makes you happy. The accusation stung because it was true. I had been thinking about myself, about my own desires and ambitions. But wasn't that what successful people did? Wasn't that how you built the life you deserved? I want what's best for our family, I said weakly. Then sign these papers, Mr. Chen said, sliding a new document across the table. Agree to the custody arrangement and the asset division, and we can handle this quietly. Refuse, and Mr. Hensley is prepared to make this very public, including providing these photographs and messages to your employer's HR department. The threat hit me like a physical blow. If Meridian's HR department saw this evidence, they'd have no choice but to investigate. Leonard and I would both be fired, our careers destroyed. You can't do that, I whispered. I can and I will, Doug said, unless you agree to end this marriage with some dignity and tact. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. The gentle, trusting man I'd married had been replaced by someone harder, more calculating, someone who'd learned to fight dirty when his family was threatened. I need time to think, I said. You have until tomorrow, Mr. Chen said, packing up his papers. After that, we file for divorce and request an emergency custody hearing. After they left, I sat alone in my dining room, staring at the copies of evidence they'd left behind. Photographs of my betrayal, printouts of my lies, bank records of my deception. My phone rang, Leonard's name on the display. Hello, beautiful. How was your morning? Terrible. Doug knows everything. He has photographs, text messages, bank records. He's filing for divorce. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Leonard, I'm here. This is unfortunate. Unfortunate? That's all you have to say. Araminta, you have to understand, this complicates things. If there's going to be a messy divorce, if this becomes public knowledge... What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should slow down, let things calm down before we make any major announcements. The words hit me like a slap. Slow down? You said we were going to announce our engagement next month. That was before your husband hired a private investigator. Araminta, I have a reputation to consider, a career to protect. What about my reputation, my career? You'll be fine. You're talented, ambitious. You'll land on your feet. The casual dismissal in his voice made my blood run cold. Are you breaking up with me? I'm being practical. This situation has become untenable. I hung up without saying goodbye and sat in my empty house, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage and the ruins of my dreams. For the first time in months, I wondered what I'd really been chasing, and whether it had ever been worth catching. The courthouse smelled faintly of bleach and regret. No marble, no grandeur, just a drab building where lives unraveled under fluorescent light. I sat across from Doug and his lawyer, my own attorney flipping through papers he couldn't defend. The photos, the texts, the transfers, it was all there, a record of everything I'd destroyed. Judge Morrison's voice was calm, clinical. Each question peeled away another layer of denial. I tried to defend myself, but even I didn't believe my words. When Maya's teacher testified about her drawings, one house for her father, another for her mother with a strange man, I broke inside. Then Leonard arrived, polished and cold, calling what we'd had a brief involvement. I watched him erase me to save himself. The judge's verdict was final. Doug kept the house in custody. I'd see Maya under supervision. Outside, Maya ran to Doug, laughing as he lifted her up. "Did you win, Daddy?" she asked. "We all won," he said. She looked at me with quiet understanding. Not anger, just sadness. "Are you coming home, Mummy?" "Not today, baby." When they left, I stood alone on the courthouse steps. A message buzzed on my phone, termination from Meridian. The man I'd ruined everything for didn't even look back. I had chased fantasy and called it freedom, and it had cost me everything real. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.